Good afternoon, everyone. Ben here, and today we are going to be covering the 1968 presidential election. Wait, isn't today supposed to be 2020? Whatever, who cares? I want to take a break from that just for this week and look at this one. And this is going to be if Kennedy hadn't been assassinated, essentially. So, what are some things to note about the electoral map? Well, number one, West Virginia has 2 more votes than it currently does today. Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania all have more, as does Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Missouri. Tennessee has the same number of districts. Kentucky has, actually, I think that's the exact, no, Kentucky has 1 more district. Virginia has 1 fewer. North Carolina has 2 fewer. South Carolina has 1 fewer. Georgia has 4 fewer. Alabama has 1 more, I think. 1 or 2 more. Mississippi has 1 more. Louisiana has a few more. Texas has fewer. Hawaii has the same. Alaska has the same. California is missing 15. Arizona is missing a lot. New Mexico's only missing 1. Montana, North and South Dakota all have 2 districts. Anything other significant? Florida is missing a ton of votes. New York has a lot more. New Jersey has a few more. Rhode Island, Massachusetts has a few more. Surprisingly, a lot of states have the same amount. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to, by the way, RFK was from Massachusetts. George Wallace was from Alabama. We're actually going to go ahead and give him Alabama. And we're giving all candidates their home states because I don't think that would change. And this is going to assume that Wallace decides to actually run instead of drop out with RFK still in. And that means there's going to be a lot of votes splitting down in the South. I'm going to award Georgia and Mississippi to Wallace. We're going to give all these western states out here to Nixon because at the time the West was almost guaranteed to go to the Republicans. I'll leave Washington for a little bit because Washington was really weird at the time. I was going to give the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma to Nixon as well. We'll cover Missouri in a little bit. We're going to give some changes from the actual electoral map. Wisconsin and Illinois are going to Kennedy. Same thing with Minnesota. Michigan, Indiana, Ohio all go to Nixon. Vermont is was at the time a Republican stronghold. We're giving New Hampshire and Maine to the Republicans as well. However, Rhode Island and Connecticut we're going to give to Kennedy. New York we are going to give to Kennedy. Jersey will go to Nixon, as will Delaware. Maryland and West Virginia will vote for Kennedy. DC will vote for Kennedy, obviously. And the magic number we need is 270. Okay? So let's talk about some of these states that are left on the board. Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and essentially the Deep South, as well as Washington. I'm going to give Kennedy Washington. Humphrey won it in real life, and Humphrey wasn't exactly the most popular candidate out there. Humphrey won Texas, but I think that's merely because Lyndon Johnson campaigned. I'm not sure Kennedy could have won it, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and award him Texas. So now let's talk about these. We're going to go ahead and give Iowa to Nixon, because it was a fairly moderate state and still is, and Kennedy was, he was probably a little bit more moderate than a lot of people today. Let's look at Pennsylvania first. Actually, no. Let's go to Kentucky, which I think Nixon would win simply because of vote splitting. Wallace was on the ballot in a lot of southern states, and that effectively split the Democratic vote total. Virginia probably would have voted for Nixon. Even if Wallace hadn't run, I think Nixon would have still performed extremely well. Virginia has always liked establishment figures of both parties for whatever reason. So now we're going to go on down to Pennsylvania and the southern periphery states, or some of the periphery states, even though Tennessee is technically deep south. Well, not really. So this is the deep south. This stretch from South Carolina to Louisiana and Arkansas. And then you've got some clearly southern states in Tennessee and North Carolina. And at the time, Florida was considered very southern except for Miami. Now it's about half and half. You can draw a line of demarcation at Tampa, about right here. Anything north of that line is the South. Anything south of the line is weird. And we'll talk about Pennsylvania, and of course the periphery states would be states like Missouri, Kentucky, Virginia, and even West Virginia, as well as Oklahoma and Texas. I'm not sure. Pennsylvania is going to go with the winner, and Missouri is probably going to go with the winner as well, because Missouri tended to be pulled towards the Republicans by states like Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. Similar situation with Iowa, actually, and pulled towards the Democrats by states like Illinois and Wisconsin. So Tennessee was won by Nixon in real life because of vote split, and I would imagine that Wallace would improve his margins, but probably not enough to win. Again, he's splitting votes with Kennedy. Similar situation in North Carolina. They'd probably have someone vote for Wallace, so I'm actually going to mark that off. There we go. So we're going to mark that off as just like real life. We're going to give South Carolina to Wallace. I think he would improve his margin enough to win the state. We're going to give Arkansas and Louisiana to Wallace as well. However, I don't think he'd be able to improve enough to win Florida, which Nixon would carry. And Nixon would probably wind up carrying Missouri and Pennsylvania like he did in real life. So Nixon improves, but despite winning 2 additional states up here, he loses a few from real life. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the actual results to show you the slight differences. Oh, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and actually give Kennedy Pennsylvania. Kind of messed that one up. And I'm also going to give him Maine. I don't think Nixon would improve in areas where Kennedy won, or where Humphrey won, for the most part. So the real difference is that despite Nixon winning South Carolina, I think Humphrey actually picks it up in this situation with RFK. And yeah, so the only real difference is I'm going to pull up the interactive map that way. Nixon just barely crosses the line in this new scenario, and Wallace improves. That's strange. There we go. There we go. That way the colors look the same. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. Oh. Huh. Oops. So I'm going to actually amend it and say that this is a tough one. Well, I don't think RFK would be as popular in Texas as Humphrey was. So we're gonna. I just can't do it. The election would go to the House. Looking at the map, just making sure I've got my prediction correct. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say that Kennedy would perform well enough to toss it to the House, but fearful of overturning the popular will of the people, so to speak, we're going to go ahead and grant the election to Nixon. So, yeah. Nixon still wins, but he has to go through the House of Representatives. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Make sure to put a suggestion in the comments for which other non-2020 election you want to look at. And I'll go ahead and take a peek at the one I think is the most interesting. Take it easy. Bye.